Today I want to introduce you to a revolutionary new way of dating, something that you've probably never been advised to do before, and yet is probably more successful than anything you've ever tried. See, most people when dating, they essentially use seduction strategies. Now these are either amateurish, like the person's just made up what they think will work and trying their best to keep that performance going and hoping that something will happen, like being super nice or trying to impress them by being funny, something like that. Or they might be professional. People who have used pickup artistry and very clever, well-tested strategies and techniques that manipulate and influence people into feeling attraction. Regardless whether you're amateur or pro or somewhere on the spectrum, most people when dating use some form of strategy known as seduction. I'm no different. For most of my life in the early years, I used what you might call a very amateur strategy, which was to be very nice and very funny. I assumed that if I make people feel happy around me all the time, they will like me more, and therefore I will find a girlfriend or a partner that way. When that didn't work, and trust me, it doesn't, I switched to the much more strategic and decisive way of doing it, the pickup artist way of doing it. I learned how to push and pull and be cocky funny and use all these techniques to essentially trick people into liking me, or at least liking what they thought I was. And yes, all of this can succeed, if by success you mean somebody is tricked into liking you. You can trick someone into liking you by being nicer than you actually are, or being funnier than you feel like being, or so on. And you can also, of course, seduce people strategically with carefully placed words and scripts and patterns and so on. These things do work. They can make especially insecure people like you a lot. But if your goal is to actually have a real connection with someone, these strategies in fact are backhanded and they will backfire on you. What I mean by this is if you trick someone into liking you, you're going to have to keep up that performance for them to keep liking you. If you suddenly reveal the real you later down the track, they're going to be shocked and probably disappointed. So what I want to talk about today is essentially a new way to seduce someone that requires zero strategy and in fact does not have the intention of seducing them. And this is what the difference is. You see, whether you're amateur or pro with seduction, you all have the same intention, which is to make the other person like you. I'd like to introduce you now to something that has a different intention but is actually equally if not more effective. And that is pushing them away with honesty. See, what I noticed as I was developing myself is that the truly confident people, the ones who had real high inner self-worth, don't use any strategies. They never try to make people like them. You either like them or you don't. They polarize people with the mere force of their personality. They never try to make you like them. You are left to make that decision on your own. They just be themselves very boldly and shamelessly, and you're left to make a call. Before I talk about what it is that they're doing, I need to talk about why strategic seduction simply doesn't work. And when I say it doesn't work, I don't mean that it doesn't make people attracted to you, though the success rate with that is pitifully low, even with the professionals. What I mean is if what you're looking for is a partner in life, if you're looking for someone who's going to love you for who you are, who will be with you through the highs and the lows, then strategic seduction is going to backfire on you. One of the things I noticed when I was doing the pickup artist thing is that all of my gurus, all of the guys that I looked up to and learned from and even paid for coaching, were all chronically single. Sure, they had a lot of women in their bed, or at least claimed to, but none of them seemed to be able to maintain a long-term committed relationship, even though some of them genuinely did want this. They seemed incapable of it. Women would be very interested in them for short periods of time, but the interest would wane and they would lose their connection with those women. And I couldn't help but notice this and ask myself, why does that keep happening? See, the problem with strategic seduction, whether you're an amateur or a pro, is that you're setting a precedent. You're saying, this is who I really am, and now you have to live up to that. There is almost no human on the planet other than the kind of most pure psychopaths that can maintain and act like that flawlessly without getting caught out. You also, of course, will build up an imposter syndrome. You know they only like you for the performance that you put on, and it starts to make you doubt that they would like the real you. In fact, you get to the point where you confirm it. You believe that the real you must be hidden because it would put someone off. This also has the problem of reciprocation. If you put on a performance, they're not going to feel safe, to be honest, so they will put on a performance in return. If you just watch people, especially on a first date, there's nothing I like more or feel more cringed out by than watching people on a first date and seeing this performance going back and forth. It's like these two actors acting out a scene while in their minds the real version of themselves is just watching. So essentially there's like 4 people on the date. There's the 2 that you can see, the ones talking to each other, laughing at everything, sharing all their great stories. And then there's the 2 hidden people behind the scenes watching all this happen, desperately wishing that it's going to go well, hoping that they could be themselves one day, but feeling forced to put on this performance. The performances are not that convincing either, even when you're professionally strategic with your seduction, unless you're dealing with someone who has very low self-confidence. When you're dealing with a confident or authentic person, they are going to see that something's wrong here. They're going to see that you're too cheerful, or that you never complain, or that you're too funny and interesting to be a normal person. And they're going to just notice this, and it's going to check them a little bit. It's going to put them on the back foot and raise their defenses because they realize, hey, I'm being played here. And it sends a very subtle message that devalues yourself. If someone can recognize that you're putting on a performance, their brain is going to do a calculation and realize, hey, this person values my approval more than his own integrity. He's putting on a performance to make me like him rather than showing me who he truly is. So that shows me where his priorities are. And there's almost nothing more needy and unattractive than someone who would rather you like them than them live with integrity. Which brings me to the crux of the matter, pushing people away with honesty. It is exactly what it sounds like, and that is when you go into dating, rather than trying to seduce them into liking you, you try to get rid of them by being as vulnerably and boldly and shamelessly honest as you are capable of being. Now what this does is it polarizes. It's going to push a majority of people away because they won't like the real you, or more likely they're just going to be afraid of that kind of intimacy and honesty. But the people who stay are people that you will never have to perform for ever for the rest of your life. If someone likes the raw, bold, honest you, that is going to be an effortless connection for you forever. You want to make sure that people have no chance at feeling maybe about you. They're either going to love you or, well, not hate you, but not love you and want to be away from you. You want to make sure that you're going to put them in that position where they have to choose. They're all in on you or they're all out. Most seduction strategies are about a safety, trying to keep them in without any risk of them falling out. You're not only going to risk them falling out, you're going to push them out. Now, being fully honest is an art more than a science, and I've got lots more resources on that you can access. You can just contact me, dan@brojo.org, or check out the Brojo courses. But what I will say now is that quite often people are scared to be honest because they're worried that it will be creepy or argumentative or judgmental. And often you're mistaking what honesty really is. Honesty is just about expressing how you truly feel in the moment, your thoughts and your feelings as they arise. That's all. You don't have to dig into your past and share your trauma. You don't have to speak every little thing that comes into your head. You just have to identify what the truth is in any given moment and try your best to express that. If the people listening like it, they will stay, and if they don't like it, they will move away. You won't have to put any effort into making them like you. You'll just let them decide for themselves based on the information that you're providing. One example of how I did this was actually with my now wife, when we were first deciding whether or not to continue our relationship, which was going to be logistically difficult because it was long distance to begin with. We played a little game that I made up, and the game was very simple. Each of us was to write a list of the things that we thought would make the other person not like us anymore, and we had to share that list with each other before we decided to move forward. So I wrote a list of 3 to 5 things that I hadn't told her yet that I thought would be a deal breaker for her, and she did the same. I can't even remember what's on her list. That's how unimportant it was to me. To her it was a big deal. But to me, I'm like, I already know that about you, I don't care. And my list, they had a couple of things that caused her to stop and think, but in the end she decided to accept them. And what this allowed us to do was to move forward knowing that, hey, I've shared the worst about myself now. There's really nothing more I have to worry about saying or doing in front of this person. I've already shared the darkest, most ugliest stuff I can think of. And this can be applied to dating as well. And it doesn't mean that when you meet someone you say, hi, my dad never hugged me and I've got a fetish for leather. It just means that whenever a thought pops up in your mind or a feeling comes up very strongly for you throughout your interaction, you share it rather than masking it with something. Pause, take time to think before you react, and try to get the truth out. Particularly 2 things you should be truthful about: your preferences, what you like and dislike, and how you feel about the other person. Other details and facts can be discovered later, but if you want a date to be really authentic, make sure that whatever topic comes up, you're being honest with how you feel about it. And whenever you have feelings or thoughts about the other person, you share them with them, whether they're positive or negative. That kind of honesty is enough for you to ensure that you have a real connection with people that can last without you having to put in an effort. For those of you still getting started with dating, I recommend taking Brojo's Initiating Conversations with Strangers course. It's free to the public, and that'll teach you how to start interactions on this note so that you never have to break the performance later on. You start with no performance and no strategy, and you can grow from there really easily and effortlessly. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found that valuable. Please share it around and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to get more content like this every week. And of course, get in touch with me, dan@brojo.org, if you have any follow-up questions or you want some more support. And I'll see you all next time.